Okay, if you're a sicko and you want to wank over something disgusting and someone's suffering, someone's pain, someone's life, that someone's messed up, disgusting, crappy life, well, this is the video for you, because I've been thinking about the Epstein case and how annoying it is that so many people say that hundreds of children were being abused, and yet I've not found one. Maybe I haven't found it. I'm bearing in mind that that's a possibility, that maybe I just haven't found it, but I haven't found one case where someone has said that they were a child. There was one girl who said that she started when she was 15, but when listening to our whole interview, she does seem to change that it might have been 16 or 17, but maybe she first met when she was 15, but she couldn't really remember. And then she started saying that there was 73 girls that she bought from her school to Epstein, and yet they didn't do anything. The film or documentary did nothing to kind of like back up and confirm this. You know, if you're making a real documentary and someone is saying that I gave a massage to this person when I was 15 and this is what happened, you know, and then I got 73 other people from my school involved, you know, how big is this school is what I'm saying, because it sounds like they've just taken the whole class. And is that really the truth? You know, if there's a whole group of people, then why is they saying, can you give us names? And then they'll call up this to confirm that this is real and this is the truth. And yeah, and it's really annoying me how vague the stories are, and how I don't necessarily believe them, because I feel like the girls saying them are not necessarily people that you can trust. They look like people that are poor, they look like people that are trying to sue. And you know, if you can change your whole life just by suing someone over some inappropriate behavior that someone did towards a 16-year-old, you know, that to me is what it sounds like. And I'm not saying that it's not a crime, I'm not saying that you should do that, I'm not saying that he doesn't belong in jail for a couple of years, you know, I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying I don't know the details, and I'm not hearing the details, and I'm just hearing so many people talk about. But anyway, listening to that story that I heard where someone said that she was 18, I think, at the time, or maybe even 19. She might have even said 19. I think she was 19 at the time. She met someone who said, I can give you £200 for a massage. She met Ghislaine, and then she went into her house, and it ended up being her being fingered, but she still got paid. She still walked out the door. She still stayed silent for a couple of years, so she obviously was happy at the time. Otherwise she should have gone straight to the police. And it wasn't rape. She didn't even use the word rape. But anyway, it's kind of occurred to me that was her story. That apparently that story in the video, she said how that story changed her whole life, even though that sort of story is actually very typical. A lot of guys make me feel uncomfortable. It's almost like they enjoy making people feel uncomfortable. Sometimes I come across clients that seem to enjoy making me feel uncomfortable, and I think it's just their sickness that's inside their head. But you know, I've been doing massage for a very, very, very long time, and I can work out how many clients or how many sessions I've done. So I bought this property with £52,000, all money that I'd made through massage. Not one of that penny was made from other. I did have one job where I made £800, but that was only for 3 months, and I don't think I got the third paycheck because I think the guy, I think it was for 4 months, but the fourth paycheck I didn't get. But yeah, it was only £800, and that would have been next to nothing. That would have been gone very, very fast. And therefore, yeah, I know exactly how much money I've made. I know how much money I live off. Back then, when I was living with my parents, I was living off a couple of £100 a year. Like, that's how bad it was. I was not earning money, so I didn't feel like I had a right to spend money. And because I didn't feel like I had a right to spend money, I was basically just suffering and feeling like I didn't belong in this world, feeling like I hate this world because this world was just ignoring me and no one seemed to help me. And housing was just getting more and more expensive, and I couldn't understand how anyone could afford it because I was feeling like absolute shit because I couldn't get a basic job. So I started feeling like even the lowest people in society were better than me. Why? Because they could walk into Sainsbury's, get a job, and be able to stay there, whereas I couldn't do that. And I couldn't really understand why I couldn't do that. And then the idea of just having to go beep, beep, beep all day was just, you know, that's just oppressing. You know, the thought of having to just go beep, beep, beep behind a checkout all day is a nightmare. Now, there are thousands of people with these jobs, and yet But yeah, massage was a lifesaver for me, because it was like, wow, suddenly I have money. Suddenly I can buy things. You know, if I want to buy pillows like this, if I want to buy clothes, if I want to do things, I actually have money. If I want to go on holiday, I have money. And so even though I hated the job, it was a lifesaver for me, because I finally had money for the first time. But yeah, if I bought this house for 52,000 using massage money, if I've bought now half of the property in oh, 1 second. If I bought half the property, actually, I'm doing the recalculation, because I realise that times 50 equals, no, times 50. So yeah, if I bought the other property, I've got in half of it, so that's 80,000. So if I count the 52,000, the 80,000, and then the sort of the few thousand that I spent in the first years of my life, and the few thousand that I've made in the last few years, and the money that I've spent, if I include the £21,000 that I spent on my extension, if I include things like holidays and just basic spending of things that I've earned, I've probably made about 1,500 pounds, maybe, or maybe less. I'm not really too sure. If I've made 170,000, then I've had 3,400 clients. If I've made, because on average, some of the sessions would be £35, so I would get quite a lot of, if I'm only making £35 for a half-hour session, then I'm not. I'd have to see quite a lot of people to make that money. So if I have made like, actually, let's go for just 4,000. Yeah. If I made 200,000, that's the calculation here. If I've made if I've made £200,000 through massage alone, that means, and I've made an average of £50 per client, because some were 35, some were 60, some have 2-hour sessions, and if I have a 2-hour session, that's I'm charging 110 for 2-hour sessions, but I used to charge 100, but on average, if a person is paying on average £50, bear in mind the cheaper ones and the more expensive ones, then that means I've had 4,000 sessions at an average of £50,000. That makes £200,000. Now, if I count the 52,000 here, the 20,000 that I've spent on the extension, all the windows, the doors, that was the giant window over there was 50,000, and then the door as well was 2,000, and if I just count all the things that I've spent money on of my life, all the travel, all the second house, the sort of half share of the second house, and I reckon that I've seen 4,000. I've had 4,000 sessions. And now that really bothers me, because that girl who was saying, oh yeah, that guy, he asked me to take my clothes off, I did, that happens to me every day. Like, a lot of my clients ask me to wear a bikini, and I have no problem wearing a bikini. And so it's like they ask me to take my clothes off, and I do, but I'm just wearing a bikini underneath, because I'm a little bit more prepared. I know that they want me to take my clothes off, so I wear a bikini, and I have no problem doing that. And yeah, they grab my ass all the time, and okay, I don't let them go inside my ass, but it's a bit of pervert. It's a bit perverted, basically. Let's just say that a lot of my sessions are perverted, and yet I've had 4,000 of them. I've had 4,000 perverted things. Perverted, what is it? I don't even know if it's just 200. If I've made £200,000, which I think is how much I made, bear in mind that £16,000 was rent that I spent. So I don't even know if I've even included that. 52. I don't know how much money I've made in my life, but I know I spent. There was one year when my rent was £16,000, and I actually lived there for a year and a half. So that was all money that's not included in this. Actually, it might be more. I've probably had more then. I probably had about 4,600 perverted sessions. So and guess what? I'm not rich. I don't have a nice life. I do not have a lot of money. I have £5,000 interest from the second home that I own, and I actually own a home. The only reason why I own a house is because I moved to Birmingham because I couldn't afford to live in London. If I would sell this 100, and I don't even know if it's worth 180. It might only be worth 160, to be honest, because the other one's definitely worth 180 because it's got a massive garden, whereas this one might actually only be worth 160 because it's got a small garden. But now that it has an extension, it might be worth more like 100. It probably is worth 180 because of the extension that I have actually. But yeah, if for 180,000, I would not be able to buy much in London. If I sold both these properties, and I'd probably be able to get a flat in London. So I've had if the average is £50 a session, or if I have a two-hour session, well, technically that is actually 2 sessions. That's not counted as 1 session. And if I'm charging, if I was charging 100 for 2 hours, then that is £50 an hour. So I've worked for, I think that's hours, 4,000 hours, and plenty of those would have been uncomfortable. Plenty of them would have been guys asking me to take my clothes off. Plenty of them would have been guys wanting to grab my ass and to I don't know, just massage me whilst I was massaging them, and being quite annoying. And many of them would wank. Sometimes you'd get clients that just wank throughout the whole session. So I've gone through 4,000. If you want to wank over someone suffering, I have gone through 4,000 hours to make £200,000, and I am poor because I only have £200,000. Most people who have 200,000, who own £1 million house, have made their £1 million house by simply buying a £25,000 house 20 years ago, and they are now millionaires. And I have not. I've made all my money not through buying a house and just sitting on it whilst the value increases. No, I've made my money through uncomfortable hours of people wanting to groom me, to try and convince me that there's nothing wrong with sex and that we should just have sex because why not? And I've just gone through. To me, I don't give a shit, because I see these 4,000 hours that I've spent to try and make. I've seen these 4,000 hours that I've spent earning an average of £50 an hour to make £200,000 an hour. I see that as my reason as to why I hate humans, why I don't give a shit that the human race dies tomorrow, because I have gone through 4,000 hours of perverts wanting just to fuck, or not that, they're not that bad. That's wanting sexual stuff and not caring about the fact that I have gone through 4,000 hours, and yet they are the ones that are living in £1 million houses when they probably did next to nothing, or they've just done some stupid, I don't even know what jobs are. I mean, I wouldn't like to go beep, 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 but those are the jobs that you don't make any money from. Those are the beep, beep, beep jobs, are the jobs that you can only just about afford to pay your rent off. But the people who have actually bought houses, and why have you managed to buy them? What have you gone through to be able to deserve that? And it does annoy me, because that girl made out that one experience that she went through was the worst thing in her life, and yet I've gone through 4,000 hours of that same thing. Or maybe not. I didn't take my clothes, but I do. I wear bikini. That's, if she took her clothes off and she was just in underwear, that's basically the same as wearing a bikini almost. I see a bikini as being publicly acceptable. I would wear a bikini in a swimming pool. I would wear it on the beach. So I have no problem wearing a bikini, whereas I do not wear underwear on a beach. So that's where I see it different. And but yeah. I think anyone who is rich and has more than £200,000 and didn't earn their £200,000 by having to have 4,000 hours worth of grooming, if I want mass genocide, and if I don't give a shit if the world blows up tomorrow, I want you to know that the reason why I feel that way is because of this. I know, because of me having to do 4,000 hours, earning an average of £50 an hour just to make £200,000. And yet there are plenty of people who own £1 million houses, and they didn't have to do any of that. And it annoys me, because, that girl, what she was saying was the worst experience of her life. She went through 1 hour of it, or half an hour of it. I've gone through 4,000 hours of it.